The flashbulbs and the velvet ropes are gone. In their place is the steady, rhythmic hum of sewing machines and the scent of raw fabric. Jessie and D'Lila stand over the work table, their focus pinned entirely to the sketches spread before them. They do not talk about the headlines that saturate the news. They talk about tension, drape, and the precise angle of a hemline. Every stitch they pull through the silk is a deliberate move away from a life defined by someone else's name. They pick up the shears, the steel cold against their palms, and cut into the material with surgical intent. When the city lights begin to flicker against the studio window, they do not pack up to attend an event. They adjust the tension on their machines and start another seam. The pressure of their past is replaced by the physical ache in their hands. They are no longer waiting for doors to open. They are building the foundation of a life that begins and ends inside these four walls. The studio is not just a workspace anymore. It is their only anchor in a world that has shifted beneath their feet. The drive to the detention center takes 2 hours of silence. Jessie and D'Lila pass through the heavy steel doors, leaving the world of fashion behind. Inside, the space is stripped of comfort. Diddy sits on the other side of the glass, his presence altered by the sterile, gray surroundings. The man they see is not the one who commanded rooms full of industry giants. The artifice has evaporated. He leans forward, his gaze shifting from the heavy walls to the photos on their phones. There is no talk of celebrity circles or professional connections. They show him the latest collection, tracing the silhouettes on the screen. He studies the lines, his feedback sharp and grounded. He asks about the fabric choices, his voice steady despite the weight of the room. For an hour, the prison walls fade into the background. They are no longer father and daughters navigating a crisis. They are collaborators analyzing a design. When the time expires, they stand. The connection is raw, defined by their shared creative vision rather than the legacy that once defined them. They walk out into the cold air, holding onto the focus they found inside. The commute back to the studio feels like returning to the only real place left. Jessie and D'Lila lock the door behind them, shutting out the expectations that once followed them like a shadow. They settle into the chairs, the floor littered with discarded patterns and thread. 14 hours a day, the routine demands everything they have. Jessie rubs her wrist, the joints stiff from hours of gripping the shears. D'Lila pulls a needle through heavy fabric, her thumb raw from the constant friction. They do not look at their phones. They do not check the news. The silence is broken only by the rhythmic clatter of the machines. Every seam is a choice to abandon the influence of their father's name. They are acutely aware that without that name, they have no safety net. The vulnerability of their position hits them when the clock strikes midnight, yet neither stands up to leave. They push the fabric under the needle, their movements sharp and precise. Exhaustion settles into their shoulders, but they do not stop. They are carving a path that belongs to no one else, and the ache in their hands is the only proof they need that this work is entirely their own. The studio door chime rings at 10 in the morning. A buyer steps inside, eyes scanning the room, clearly searching for an entourage that is not there. Jessie and D'Lila stand behind the workbench, their posture upright, hands resting on the fabric rolls. The buyer begins with a question about industry ties and family backing. Jessie interrupts, her voice steady and devoid of hesitation. She points to the collection on the rack. They present the work as their own, focusing on the construction and the material density. The buyer shifts, surprised by the directness, and attempts to press for a discount based on past associations. D'Lila shakes her head, citing the production hours and the quality of the finish. They hold their ground, refusing to lean on any name other than their own. The negotiation flows through price points and delivery timelines. They do not mention their father. They do not offer apologies or excuses. The buyer studies the seams, then nods, acknowledging the value of the product itself. They settle on a contract. When the buyer finally leaves, the sisters remain at the bench. The silence returns, but it is no longer heavy with anticipation. It is the silence of success earned through labor, and for the first time, the weight of their own names feels entirely sufficient. Midnight arrives with a finality that settles over the studio. Jessie and D'Lila turn off the machines, the sudden absence of noise amplifying the hum of the city outside. They pack their bags, placing the last of the day's samples carefully on the table. They move toward the window, looking out as the city lights flicker across the horizon. From this height, the world they once moved through the red carpets and the industry circles feels like a distant, static image. It no longer demands their attention. They turn away from the glass, their movements deliberate and calm. The exhaustion of the day remains, but it is tempered by a clarity they have never known. They lock the studio door, the sound echoing in the hallway. They walk toward the elevator, leaving the space behind, yet carrying the work they have built. There is no looking back at the prison walls that hold their past. They step into the night, heads held high, committed to a future that belongs to them alone. The legacy they are crafting is not inherited. It is forged, stitch by stitch, in the quiet hours of the night. They walk into the darkness, and for the first time, the path ahead is entirely their own.